This is the soldier with a machine gun in 1942. And this is the soldier with a machine gun in 2025. More than 8 decades have passed. The world has changed from mud-soaked trenches to battlefields where drones circle overhead. But look closely. What they are holding in their hands looks strangely familiar. It is the silhouette of the MG42, the machine gun that carries within it the metallic roar of the 20th century. People call it by many names the saw, the sewing machine of the devil, the sound of fear. But behind those nicknames lies a story of engineering and also a lesson in strategy. Because the MG42 is not just a gun. It is a symbol of how humans changed warfare with intellect, speed, and cold calculation. In the noisy world of those World War II documentary films, this gun appears like something that never dies, surviving defeat, crossing borders, changing ammunition, changing names, but not changing its essence. And to understand why it has endured so long, we must go back in time to where it all began. So what created the MG42's very first ghost? Before there was the MG42, there was the MG08, the descendant of the legendary Maxim gun. The MG08 was the machine that introduced the concept of sustained fire, a gun that could keep shooting before the enemy even had time to duck. In World War I, it turned the European battlefield into a maze of smoke and fire. But the MG08 weighed nearly 36 kilograms, had to be water-cooled, and needed a whole team to drag it through the mud. It was a beast born for trenches, not for speed. When the cannons of World War I fell silent, German engineers understood that the next war would have no place for such heavy equipment. They looked to the future where warfare would be a combination of tanks, infantry, and air power, the thing the world would later call Blitzkrieg. For Blitzkrieg to succeed, they needed a new kind of firepower, compact, light, mobile, and fast enough to run with the tanks. From that idea, the first design lines of the MG13 were born in secrecy when Germany was still banned from making weapons. But a light gun alone was not enough. The Germans needed something truly revolutionary. The MG13 was a step forward, air-cooled, with a bipod, and portable by a single person. It was the first glimmer in the modernization journey. But that glimmer faded quickly. The 25-round magazine meant the gun could only fire for a few seconds before reloading. On a high-tempo battlefield, that was unacceptable. Then in the late 1930s, Germany introduced a new icon, the MG34, the world's first so-called general-purpose machine gun. With belt-fed ammunition, quick-change barrels, and a rate of fire up to 900 rounds per minute, the MG34 was the technical champion of its day. It was mounted on tanks, on aircraft, and of course in the hands of infantry. But perfection always comes at a price. The MG34 was expensive, labor-intensive to produce, and extremely sensitive to dust. A single grain of sand could silence it. As the war expanded, Germany didn't need the best weapon, it needed a weapon good enough for mass production. From within that seemingly impossible requirement, a team of engineers was given a mission. Create something stronger than the MG34, but half the price and twice as fast to produce. And then they truly accomplished the impossible. 4. In 1942, the MG42 was born. It was the fusion of engineering strategy and the cold temperament of the era. The receiver was made from stamped steel, not requiring complex machining like the MG34. The rate of fire reached 1 watt 200 rounds per minute so fast that the human ear could no longer hear individual shots, only a continuous buzz like a power saw. The side barrel change system lets the gunner swap a hot barrel in a few seconds. And notably, it fired from an open bolt to cool better and prevent rounds from cooking off. When the MG42 first echoed on the front, enemy soldiers were stunned. Many said they thought it was an automatic cannon, not a machine gun. But what made the MG42 legendary was not only its rate of fire, it was how Germany turned it into the center of infantry tactics. In every 10-man squad, the MG42 was the heart. The whole team moved, attacked, and defended around it. And when the MG42 opened up, the battlefield changed. But to understand why this gun became irreplaceable, we have to look at the secret weapon that accompanied it. 5. If the MG42 is the heart, then the lefty tripod is the brain. It is not just a mount, it is a mechanical computer. With its steel tube frame, recoil-absorbing springs, and precision sighting mechanism, the lefty could turn a mobile machine gun into a long-range automatic cannon. The miracle lay in the Tiefenfeuer automat, an automatic sweeping mechanism. The soldier could preset range and sweep angle. When the trigger was pulled, the MG42 would automatically sweep across the preset sector, sprinkling bullets like a rain of steel without the operator having to touch the gun. In defensive engagements, the lefty allowed the Germans to fire with such precision that they didn't need to see the target. They set the gun, pulled a cord to fire from a safe position, and withdrew to cover. Opponents called it the invisible death because no one knew where the bullets came from. In later World War II documentary films, people still mention the Lafette as proof of the German engineers' extreme meticulousness, where every detail, no matter how small, served a single purpose: maximum efficiency. But that perfect weapon also had its price, and it was a price soldiers paid right on the battlefield. 6. Firing fast means barrels heat fast. An MG42 could consume 250 rounds in just 10 seconds, equivalent to 8 kilograms of steel brass and propellant vanishing just to keep a sector secure. German soldiers were trained to swap barrels in 4 seconds. Any slower and the glowing barrel could rupture or warp, disabling the gun on the spot. They carried so much ammunition that they had to use horses' carts and even bare hands for continuous resupply. A machine gun team of 3, the gunner, assistant gunner, and ammo bearer, operated like a machine. If just one fell, the whole system would grind to a halt. But thanks to discipline and coordination, the MG42 became a true terror on every front, from the deserts of North Africa to the snowy forests of the Ardennes. Though it could not slice someone in two, as rumor claimed, its sound alone forced people to press themselves to the earth. Veterans after the war recalled that they could identify the MG42 among dozens of weapons by its short, urgent buzz, like the breathing of death itself. And when the war drew to a close, everyone thought the MG42 would disappear with Germany, but they were wrong. When World War II ended, Germany's enormous stockpiles fell into the hands of many nations. Instead of being forgotten, the MG42 was copied, modified, and kept in service. Yugoslavia produced the M53 clone. France and Czechoslovakia used the MG42 in its original form. And when Germany rebuilt and joined NATO, they faced a question: do we need a new machine gun, or just tune what we already had? The answer was simple: tune it. They changed the caliber to 7.62. NATO added a few details and gave it new names: MG1, then MG3. The core was still the MG42, only with disintegrating belts and a slightly reduced rate of fire to save ammunition. Today, the MG3 remains in service with many countries in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. On tanks, helicopters, or defensive posts, it still produces that familiar sound, the sound of history not yet closed. Like a living World War II documentary, the MG42 and its descendants remind us that sometimes the most dangerous weapon is not the new one, but the one perfected too early. And that raises the question: why can a classic design outlast even today's technology? The MG42 is proof that wars are not decided only by strength, but by calculation and manufacturability. While many nations poured months into crafting a perfect gun, the Germans dared to sacrifice aesthetics for efficiency. They understood on the battlefield what is inexpensive yet effective determines the pace of history. An MG34 required 150 hours of hand labor, while the MG42 needed only half. In the same time, they could produce twice as many, and that is precisely why this gun was born to endure. But perhaps the most astonishing thing is not the steel or the bullets, but the mindset. Because the MG42 did not just change how the Germans fought, it changed how the entire world thought about medium machine guns. The United States once tried to copy the T-24 project but failed. However, they learned one thing: the MG42's philosophy could be combined with the practicality of the FG42 to create another icon, the M60. Dozens of countries, over dozens of years, have continued to use that original design. In every frame of a World War II documentary, You can hear the MG42 amid smoke and flame, and you can also hear that sound again on today's battlefields in the form of the MG3. It is not just a weapon, it is the legacy of industrial thinking, a reminder that in the modern world, efficiency never goes out of date. And perhaps when that buzz echoes somewhere in the 21st century, people will again ask, is this the final echo of World War II, or merely the prelude to a new chapter of history? More than 80 years later, the MG42 is still here in museums and arsenals, and in the memories of those who heard it for the first time. It has lived through empires, through defeat, through the changes of the age. And it still reminds us a truly great design does not need to be reborn because it never died. When you watch those World War II documentary films about it, remember behind every metallic rasp is not only the story of war, but the story of people, the engineers, the soldiers, and those who heard that sound for the last time in their lives. The MG42 does not just fire bullets, it fires history. And that history, whether we like it or not, is still beating somewhere in the world today. When we look back at the MG42, we do not see just a gun. We see a lesson about people in the storm of an era. It is proof of how science, industry, and warfare are tightly bound together, and also a reminder of the price humanity must always pay for each of its advances. The Germans did not create the MG42 simply to instill fear. They created it because they believed speed and efficiency could change the course of war. And indeed, during the darkest years of the 20th century, the MG42 accomplished that. But in return, millions of rounds fell, and the world bore another wound that would never fully heal. What has kept the MG42 alive for more than 8 decades is not only steel, but the mindset of adaptation. When faced with limits, humans always find new ways to move forward, even if that step leads them to the dangerous edge of their own humanity. In today's world, that lesson remains entirely valid. A weapon's design can be immortal, but if people do not learn the reasons it was created, then history will never truly close.